So if you're anything like me and you have an internet connection, which if you're watching this video, I guess you do. So there you have it. You've probably been inundated lately by different topics with respect to the latest conflict, uh, world conflict, and what's happening between Israel and Palestine. And it's just one of a string in this series of conflicts that gets front and center of attention in the media, in social media, and alternate media, and it's really interesting how that works, because of course it's not like that's the only place in the world where bad things are happening, but it is really catching the eye of our attention spans as human beings. And so I just wanted to sort of contemplate it a little bit from an alternative lens, right? Not trying to pick a side. It seems like a lot of people who want to talk about this will take sides, or not even so much take sides, but make a stance. How about that? Like a common one that I see is that my stance is this is I am opposed to harm to innocent people, and that's good. I mean, I would by no means would disagree with that, but it's still taking a stance. And I guess what I would argue is it's still allowing a dualistic frame of perception to dominate the experience of life. Me versus them, us versus them, me versus you. I see it this way, and therefore I am in opposition to the perpetrators of the conflict. And again, my goal here is to not take any stance except for to say, what difference may arise with a more non-dualistic perceptual framework. And I don't really have an answer. My objective is to just kind of contemplate this, sort of a video journal, so to speak. Because I do think that non-duality is the ultimate pathway to peace, but not the peace that we think, right? I mean, the Bible says peace that surpasses or transcends understanding. So world peace that's often talked about is that everyone will get along, there will be no more conflicts, but that is something we can understand. And I think what non-duality points to is beyond understanding. It is the peace that is beyond understanding, because it is, you could say that it is a dropping away of understanding. You know, like something that I find personally helpful about consuming any sort of media with respect to conflict, such as this latest Israel-Palestine escalation or political conflict between the left and the right, or the Ukraine-Russia conflict, what I actually find to be helpful for me personally is sort of a recognition of non-understanding, not making a claim, not not finding a solid position from which to perceive that conflict and therefore to judge it one way or the other. And I think that in this respect, even as I'm like thinking about maybe what's going on in my head, or maybe what will come to words in this recording, is that like a lot of other things, this is a very impalatable, unpopular message. Like really grappling with non-duality isn't popular. You know, the popular message when it comes to conflict is that we don't want conflict. We want peace. We want harmony. We want no innocent people ever harmed. You know, at least that seems to be the popular message. Obviously, it's not what everybody is saying right now. But again, that's not necessarily realistic. If history tells us anything, is there is going to be conflict. There is going to be one group hating another group, carrying out violence on another group. There is going to be positions taken, stances taken by virtually everybody, it seems. Although I would say that it seems like maybe there seems to be more of a voice coming through of a recognition that I really don't understand. I don't have the sufficient frame of reference or position from which to understand. And that to me is a characteristic of non-duality, because duality is separateness, that there's something happening and there's an entity that is separate from the happening that can see it, perceive it, judge it, and therefore have a stance of it. And again, that's duality. So when we're taking a stance on things such as conflict in the world, whatever it may be, that's duality. And so non-duality, how do we explain the more non-dual perspective here? You know, we could there's the more reductionist non-duality, which can be helpful to simply recognize the nature of so many things as just a story. It's just, you know, when these conflicts arise, they arise out of the story, seemingly. They arise out of a story of identity. I think that's actually maybe a good way to look at it. You know, identity is one of the building blocks of duality. I am this, I am that, etc., etc., etc. And what I am, my identity, is in conflict with others. Or what we see a lot of these conflicts arise is, just a conflicting identity, right? Whether that's cultural identity, political identity, religious identity. And something that non-duality reveals is that identity is an illusion. It can't be found. It's a thought. Try to describe identity, your identity or another's identity. Consider this latest conflict, or any other conflict that arises. Maybe you're watching this years down the road and there's a different conflict happening. Try to describe the identities involved in the conflict without thoughts. So it can't be done, first of all. Spoiler alert. And what does that tell us? Well, I guess the next logical step is, well, if is it possible to live free from thought? What are thoughts? Sort of that deep contemplation into like, what does a thought represent? Are thoughts real? So if we have a thought about identity, is it real? Or is it just a thought? Again, I don't have an answer to that, other than that can be a really destabilizing contemplation, because everything we know is thoughts. I am in a home right now. A thought about this apparent steaming concentration of energy. I'm in a structure that I call home, and I've got other bodies, seemingly, that live in this home, and there are thoughts that would say that they are my family. But without thoughts, what are they? See, it can be kind of scary, right? I think a lot of times when people go into these really deep existential questions, family, friends, like close relationships, can be stumbling blocks, because the last thing we want to do is put any sort of meaningful relationship at risk. And that's great. It's another thought, but it's good to be mindful of that. We are social, relational beings. But nonetheless, what is true? And that's where I think this is a valuable exercise, is to go into identity and the thought world that constructs identity, and really investigate, is it real, or is it just a story? And if it is just a story, what to do? What to make of it? And again, I'll stop here, but I'll say that this is a very unpopular message. The opposition would say, well, that's just burying your head in the sand. I've heard that one before. Not that I am out there speaking openly about this. I'm only really interested in sharing this in a platform of people who are interested in non-duality, right? But in the event that people hear about this that are not interested, or even people interested in non-duality, it can still be a very triggering thing because you're burying your head in the sand. You're opting to not take a stance against injustice in the world, and that may all be true to some degree, but what I'm concerned with here is cultivating truth above all. What is the truth of conflict? Because can the revelation of the truth about conflict unravel it little by little? Maybe get a little woo-woo metaphysical here, but is it possible that one mind at a time that sort of unravels a lot of the tension around conflict through truth being revealed about what it really is, can that be contagious to the point that over time there becomes less contracted, dense, fear-based energy around conflict in the world? I don't know, but again, I think pursuing the truth of all of this and what undergirds the identities that fuel the conflict is a worthy undertaking.